For years, people whispered that Richard Rawlings was hiding something shocking. Finally, he stepped away from Discovery, and he's ready to reveal the truth that explains every twist in his life. Why his marriages collapsed, why he suddenly sold his prized cars, and what really led Discovery to cancel his show. At 55, he's opening up about the $6 million legal nightmare that's far more explosive than anyone ever guessed. Richard Rawlings was born on March 30, 1969, in a modest Fort Worth, Texas neighborhood. Even before he became a TV personality and car world icon, his life was already glued to four wheels. One early photo shows him as a tiny boy riding around in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle. It wasn't just a toy, it was a prophecy of his future. While most children spent Saturday mornings with cartoons, Richard had a different schedule. At 3 in the morning, when the city slept, he'd go with his dad to deliver newspapers. They'd load up, drive through silent streets, and toss papers onto driveways. After school, he did it again for the afternoon edition, and on weekends, he pedaled around to collect payments. What really grabbed his attention was the sea of cars he saw along those routes. He memorized every make, model, and year, telling curious folks, "I pass your house twice a day almost every day. Of course I know what's in your driveway." His dad worked multiple jobs but always kept one reward for himself, a car or a motorcycle. That little indulgence drove home a powerful lesson for Richard. If you want something special, you've got to earn it. By 14, he bought his first car with his own funds. It was 1983, and the vehicle was a green 1974 Mercury Comet. Not many teenagers could claim they were driving at 14, legally or not, but that didn't stop him. That loud green Comet made quite a statement. Richard would tear up the school parking lot, doing donuts just to prove a point. His classmates still remember that car, mostly because of its questionable paint job. For Richard, it was the ultimate ride. Things progressed quickly. By his senior year in 1987, he owned his third car, a black 1977 Bandit Trans AM, a nod to the iconic Smokey and the Bandit. That ride turned him into the resident car expert at Eastern Hills High School. But it wasn't just for show. He was also buying and selling cars, fixing them up, and flipping around 20 different vehicles before he even graduated. He earned more doing this than most of his peers made at part-time gigs. In the early 90s, when he was only 22, Richard had a terrifying brush with danger. He was cruising in a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2 Fastback when carjackers attacked him near Oakland Boulevard in Fort Worth. They tried pulling him from the driver's seat, and in the struggle, he took a bullet through his shoulder and down his left arm. He could have sworn off the car life forever, but instead, it only fueled his resolve. Between 1988 and 1990, Richard wore 3 distinct uniforms: police officer, firefighter, and paramedic, all before he turned 21. His dad always said, "You get a good job with benefits, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch." Richard tried to follow that advice, at least for a while. That all shifted in 1988 when he was delivering Miller Lite to a local bar. A regular, who Richard assumed was just some intoxicated patron, asked about his life plans. Richard mentioned law enforcement but admitted the academy was too costly. The man replied, "Damn it, I'm the mayor of so-and-so city." 17 days later, Richard was enrolled in the North Texas Police Academy. He served as a cop in Alvarado, then became a firefighter in Capel. Wearing multiple hats taught him how to keep his cool during mayhem, a skill that helped him later in business. By 25, he was craving a bigger change. He sold off everything, purchased a Jeep, and headed for California to seek a fresh start. At that time, he had a clean-cut look, no tattoos, no piercings. 6 months later, he limped back to Texas, broke and sleeping on his sister's couch, with new ink, pierced ears, and no Jeep. It got repossessed. That low point didn't destroy him, it sharpened his focus. He needed to build something from the ground up, which led him to create Lincoln Press in 1999. It was a printing and advertising firm in Dallas, launched with zero printing experience but a strong grasp of branding. He took out a $100,000 small business loan, and 5 years later, Lincoln Press was thriving. In 2004, he even promised a Lamborghini Gallardo to the first client who spent $1 million with his company. That wild move paid off handsomely, and eventually, he sold the business for a tidy profit, which fueled his ultimate passion, cars. When Richard founded Gas Monkey Garage in 2002, it was hardly glamorous. The shop was tiny, lacking air conditioning or running water, and bankrolled by his Lincoln press sale. Times were tough, but Richard believed in his mission. He and a small crew hit the road, traveling to car shows, rallies, and industry events, hustling to spread the Gas Monkey name. In May 2007, he and friend Dennis Collins did something legendary. They set out to break the fabled 1979 Cannonball Run record of 32 hours, 51 minutes, a coast-to-coast sprint from New York to Los Angeles. That benchmark had held strong for nearly 3 decades. On May 12, 2007, they ditched the planned Bull Run rally from Montreal to Key West, heading straight for the record in a Ferrari 550 Maranello fitted with extra fuel tanks. They left Manhattan in the dead of night and arrived at the Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach in just 31 hours, 59 minutes, smashing the old record. Some folks doubted the route or questioned comparisons to the original run. But controversy or not, it was a daring feat that grabbed attention. It was dangerous, it was bold, and it caught the eye of Jay Leno, who gave Richard a personal nod of approval. That moment was huge, especially because it happened years before Fast and Loud turned Richard into a global name. Jay Leno isn't just any car aficionado, he's the car guy, with a massive collection and universal respect in the automotive arena. So his endorsement was a game-changer. Richard needed that credibility, because from 2002 to 2012, Gas Monkey Garage barely scraped by. He poured every dime he had into it, working in a shop without basic comforts, hunting for solid mechanics and parts, and hustling to keep the lights on. Each new project felt like a gamble. During that stretch, Richard pitched his idea for a TV show. He wanted to give everyone, from die-hard gearheads to casual viewers, a front-row seat to car restorations. Most networks brushed it off, calling it too niche or risky. While he waited for a big break, he took Gas Monkey on the road to every car event imaginable. It was a slow grind, but it built serious loyalty. Finally, in 2012, Discovery gave him the green light. By then, Gas Monkey Garage already had a foothold in the car community. Fast and Loud premiered on June 6, 2012, and nobody expected it to explode the way it did. Suddenly, a Dallas garage was recognized around the globe, airing in more than 200 countries and translated into 13 languages. Overnight, Richard became a star in the entertainment sphere. The concept was straightforward yet compelling. Richard and his crew hunted down forgotten classics, often junked or barely operational, and resurrected them into shimmering showpieces before selling them for profit. The show's vibe felt upbeat and inclusive, different from other car programs that went heavy on drama or stayed extremely niche. Richard wanted a fun, fast-flowing show anyone could enjoy, and it worked like magic. Viewers loved the high-octane transformations, and Richard seized that success to grow way beyond television. He launched Gas Monkey restaurants, clothes, energy drinks, and tequila, turning the original garage into the core of a massive empire. By 2020, he had built an automotive powerhouse. Although Fast and Loud concluded on June 8, 2020, after 16 seasons and 155 episodes, the brand only became more influential. Richard credits what he calls his cash money formula for the show's triumph. It centered on making shrewd buys and even smarter sales. He'd traverse the country searching for classic cars in dreadful shape, then haggle hard and pay swiftly, sometimes carrying huge stacks of cash to clinch the deal on the spot. "You can always buy a $10,000 car for $5,000 if it's right there in your pocket," he once remarked. It wasn't just a catchy line, it was how he really operated, and it worked wonders. One standout example was a Dodge Challenger he picked up for slightly above $40,000. Gas Monkey sank $77,000 into the rebuild, adding sleek modifications. The Challenger later sold for $150,000, netting a $73,000 profit on one flip. It was more than good fortune. It showed off Richard's sharp eye for deals, wise spending, and perfect timing. Richard's nerve for taking big chances also made Fast and Loud unique. He frequently snatched up cars others avoided, rusted wrecks, frames riddled with damage, and vehicles neglected for years. His own crew often doubted his choices, but he spotted hidden gems in what seemed like lost causes. Once, he bought a supercar for $400,000 that had major mechanical failures. Gas Monkey Garage turned it around and sold it for a hefty profit. That flair for high-stakes gambles became a main storyline. These junky relics weren't just about money, they brought emotional drama to the show. Each classic had its own history, and each restoration had hurdles to conquer. Fans got a first-hand look at the sheer time, cost, and sweat poured into these projects. Not every build turned a profit, but the risk made the reward even sweeter, and it revealed the real business truth behind car flipping. Over 8 years, from June 2012 to June 2020, Fast and Loud was a top Discovery Channel reality show. By the 4th season, the format was locked in: ticking clocks, sudden snags, and frantic finishes. Nobody could predict if they'd beat the clock or blow a big sale. That tension fueled the audience's fascination. Then, in 2020, Richard revealed on The Joe Rogan Experience that he was done with Discovery. He wanted more creative control and refused to stick to contracts that boxed him in. Walking away was risky, but it opened fresh paths. Since then, he stayed busy, building his brand on YouTube, branching into new media, and keeping Gas Monkey Garage very much alive. By 2013, Richard Rawlings had firmly established himself in the car world, but he wasn't content to stay in one lane. That September, he opened the first Gas Monkey Bar and Grill in Northwest Dallas on the site of the old Firewater Bar and Grill, spanning an impressive 19,000 square feet. It wasn't just a spot to grab food, it was equal parts music venue, bar, and full-blown attitude. The place could pack in around 1,200 people, and Richard made sure to hire pros who knew how to run a high-energy venue. He brought in Alex Mendanza, formerly from the House of Blues in Las Vegas, to manage the operation. David Hollister was enlisted as the culinary manager, and the venue launched with a bang. 2 days before the grand opening, the old 97s rocked its very first show. This wasn't your average grill, it oozed style and turned heads from the start. By March 2014, Richard was ready to expand, opening another Gas Monkey Bar and Grill in Terminal D of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Millions of travelers buzzing through that busy hub suddenly had a chance to soak up the Gas Monkey vibe. Richard even talked about adding a third location beyond the DFW area. This wasn't some casual experiment. He was building a brand empire that roared as loudly as his cars. Later in October 2014, he raised the stakes by opening Gas Monkey Live right across from the original bar and grill. The new space dwarfed the first one at 38,000 square feet, holding up to 3,000 fans for massive concerts and events. Before Richard took over, the spot had been Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill, but he turned it into a live music powerhouse. He kicked things off with an opening night concert by punk legends Social Distortion, and the venue quickly attracted other major acts. One of the most unforgettable shows was the free Motley Crue concert in November 2014, part of the All Bad Things Must End tour. It was called Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey, and entry was only granted to Dodge owners. Beyond the music, the night showcased Dodge's latest models, like the Charger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger SRT Hellcat. It was a roaring blend of horsepower and rock and roll that pulled in fans from every direction. Gas Monkey Live also hosted private parties and corporate events. It was versatile, with VIP spaces, backstage amenities, and enough room for all kinds of gatherings. Sadly, by May 2020, the venue was forced to shut down when financial struggles from the COVID-19 pandemic became overwhelming. That closure marked the end of a daring chapter for Richard's leap into the music scene, but it didn't stop him from forging ahead. In that same jam-packed year of 2014, Richard started a major partnership with Dodge, becoming their national spokesperson. Suddenly, he was everywhere, driving performance models in commercials and talking about the brand's power and style. The partnership with Dodge led to marquee events like the Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey concert, perfectly blending Richard's love for cars with his vision for high-energy entertainment. Come 2019, he made another shrewd move, this time in energy drinks. Rather than start from scratch, he licensed the Gas Monkey name, holding on to control of the image while letting experts handle production. Gas Monkey Energy launched with regular and light varieties, wrapped in packaging that screamed speed and excitement. It matched Richard's relentless, adrenaline-fueled persona. By January 2025, the brand added a third flavor called Tropical, blending mango, passion fruit, pineapple, lemon, and honey. The line stayed clear of high-fructose corn syrup and artificial extras, capturing the bold yet clean vibe Richard's fans loved. You could find these drinks at convenience stores or online, and they popped up at major motorsports events like the Indianapolis 500. Even as Richard's career blazed ahead, his personal life was anything but smooth. Long before Fast and Loud turned him into a household name, Richard got married for the first time in 1993. He wed Karen K. Grams during a time when he was still searching for his place in the automotive industry. Less than a year later, in 1994, that union was over. No headlines, no spotlight, just a young, driven guy whose marriage ended almost as soon as it began. By 1999, he took another leap, marrying Suzanne Marie Merrill in Las Vegas. At that point, Gas Monkey Garage was showing some early promise, but it was still a tough road. Despite sticking together for a decade, they split in 2009. The hectic pace of Richard's life took its toll, but this wouldn't be the final chapter for him and Suzanne. 6 years after their divorce, in 2015, they remarried in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. It looked like a fresh start for both of them. By then, Gas Monkey was on the rise, and Richard was gaining real momentum in the car scene. However, by March 2019, he took to Twitter to announce they were parting ways again. Their second divorce wrapped up fast, with Suzanne leaving the marriage $300,000 richer and holding on to her Mercedes SL 450 Roadster. After that back-and-forth marriage, Richard met Katerina Diesen. She'd been married to Darwin Diesen, a Texas billionaire who sold affiliated computer services to Xerox for $6 billion. Katerina was used to private jets and superyachts like Apogee, but in 2019, her world shifted when she started dating Richard. The relationship moved quickly, and on August 17, 2019, he proposed at Tulum Resort in Mexico, covering the sand with rose petals and calling her his soulmate on social media. They married on June 28, 2020, in Key West, Florida, choosing an intimate ceremony because COVID-19 had scrapped their larger Greek wedding plans. Katerina stepped out of a billionaire's orbit and straight into the adrenaline of the automotive scene. It was a dramatic life pivot that seemed to suit her perfectly. But while Richard's marriage to Katerina was lighting up headlines, a different kind of firestorm was brewing behind the scenes. In June 2018, the custom car community was shaken when Gas Monkey Bar and Grill filed a $6 million defamation lawsuit against its own founder. Fans were stunned. The documents claimed Richard tried to break free from contracts in sneaky ways, damaging the entire brand in the process. The suit spelled out trouble starting as early as May 2013, even before the bar officially opened. One former employee, Tim Hinkhouse, allegedly sent an email comparing Richard to a bratty 13-year-old and hinted he was banned from the site for mistreating construction workers. Sparks were flying, and the friction only grew from there. After the bar launched in 2013, tensions kept building. The lawsuit said Richard would show up unannounced, cause chaos for staff, and seize control of decisions. It also stated that by 2015, Richard accused managing member Daniel Flighty of hiding key financial records. Flighty responded by offering a full audit, but Richard refused, claiming he didn't think those records even existed. That was a serious allegation, hinting at theft or fraud. According to the lawsuit, Richard later apologized and blamed his actions on drinking. But by then, the damage had been done. The filing claimed vendors and potential partners were scared off by Richard's accusations, making the bar's reputation spiral downward. It also mentioned a 2017 incident where a buyer was eyeing the Gas Monkey Bar brand, but Richard's accusations ruined the deal. In 2019, Richard fired back. On March 28 at 2:15 p.m., he filed a $1 million countersuit for copyright infringement. He insisted that the bar kept using the Gas Monkey name and logo even after their licensing deal ended. He claimed the brand was being attached to inappropriate, sexually suggestive events, hurting his reputation and intellectual property. A few weeks earlier, on February 25, 2019, he'd sent a cease and desist letter, giving them 10 days to stop using the Gas Monkey identity. When that didn't happen, he escalated to legal action, seeking $1 million for lost licensing fees and damage to the brand's worth. Meanwhile, whispers surfaced about financial woes at the bar. One related venue, Gas Monkey Live, had shut down, fueling rumors that Richard was simply trying to guard his image from a sinking venture. All of this turned into a messy soap opera for car fanatics and legal buffs alike. Lawsuits flew back and forth, with each side pointing fingers at the other. But Richard hardly slowed down. After ending Fast and Loud, he launched a podcast called Monkey Trap, giving himself a direct channel to speak to fans and interview guests from diverse industries. One standout guest was Hollywood stuntman Cord Newman, famous for lighting himself on fire. The podcast delivered behind-the-scenes tidbits and wild interviews, keeping Richard in the public eye as the lawsuits raged on. He also kept fueling his passion for cars. In September 2023, he unloaded nearly 30 rides from his personal collection on Bring a Trailer. Though he'd faced bruising legal drama, multiple marriages, and a whirlwind TV career, he refused to slow down. The world watched as he pivoted Gas Monkey Garage into uncharted territory. No more second-hand beer budget flips. Richard had his eyes on iconic brands like Ferrari, Lamborghini, and vintage gems that promised both style and profit. Some admired the hustle, others rolled their eyes, but everyone kept watching. In the end, if there's one thing that defines Richard Rawlings, it's his refusal to quit, no matter the odds. He took bullets, battled lawsuits, broke records, lost millions, made millions more, and never lost that white-hot drive. Whether you cheer for him or criticize his every move, there's no denying he remains a force in both automotive culture and pop entertainment.